Jun Sung rushed to his best friend Young Hoon's apartment, hoping to talk to him after their brief phone conversation yesterday. As he went up to the floor, he saw the bright flashing beacons of police cars outside the windows. The apartment door was open, and the faint odor of blood lingered in the air. A crowd of neighbors in the hallway looked around anxiously. Ignoring the shouts of the police officers, Jun Sung rushed inside. There was a lifeless woman lying on the bed, her face hidden under bloodstains. It was Yun Hong's wife. 2 weeks after the tragedy, the unthinkable happened. Jung Hoon was arrested. The police said they found his hair at the crime scene, in a pool of blood next to the victim's body. He denied his guilt. Yoon Hoon also refused to believe his friend was capable of such a thing. But the evidence was against him. With each passing day, the situation became more confusing. 5 months had passed since the murder, and Yun Hong arrived at the police station to pick up his wife's personal belongings. Yun Hong sat in his car outside the motel and looked at the raindrops running down the windshield. His mind was spinning with thoughts of his wife and best friend whom he had lost on the same day, one physically, the other mentally. As he got out of the car and headed for his hotel room, Dane called out to him before he entered. He pretended not to hear and quickened his step. She caught up with him at the door, knocked, and begged him to let her talk. Yun Hong stared at the castle in silence for a few seconds. Finally, with a sigh, he opened the door. She asked him to help her prove her husband's innocence. Yun Hong turned away. He didn't want to hear those words again. For 5 months, he pondered everything, the evidence, the doubts, his pain. He didn't know what to believe. Dae-in tried to convince him, but he got angry and kicked her out. Yun Hong returned to his apartment for the first time since the tragedy. Barely crossing the threshold, he felt the past piling up on him. The furniture was scattered, the bloodstains on the floor and bed reminded him of that horrible night. Barely holding back tears, he set about cleaning up. As he scrubbed away the dried blood, his hands trembled, and he couldn't hold back his emotions. At night, Yun Hong was about to fall asleep at his desk when he heard someone trying to open the lock of his door. He ran out into the hallway and grabbed the stranger. The man claimed he just thought no one was home, so Yun let him go. When he returned to the house, he noticed that his hand was bleeding. As he was wiping the blood with a towel, his gaze fell on something familiar. A towel with a rainbow pattern on it. It should have been at the murder scene. Yun Hong began to compare the facts. The towel was a gift from Junsun, but if he really was the murderer, he wouldn't have covered the victim's face with it. His wife's laundry rack was left untouched, which meant that either the killer was a temporary guest or someone she trusted. These thoughts led him to conduct a new investigation. He recreated the murder scene, trying to figure out what the police had missed. The next morning, Dane came to see him. He confessed that he wanted to do his own investigation. Every detail, every piece of evidence reinforced his certainty, Jung Hoon was not the killer. But the police were still convinced it was a case of jealousy. Yun Hong made a firm decision to testify at the appeal trial of Jung Hoon's case, hoping to shed light on the truth in this way. However, he realized that this alone was not enough and convinced Dae-in to help him find the real killer. Wanting to dig deeper into the circumstances of the tragedy, Young Hoon insisted on recreating the murder scene. He asked Dae-hyun to imagine himself in his wife's shoes and assume the role of the killer. Dae-hyun agreed, though fear gripped her. As she lay on the floor, Yoon Hoon showed her where he thought the fight might unfold. But during the dramatization, he became too emotional and squeezed her throat hard. Barely breaking free, Dae-hyun ran out of the apartment, shocked by his behavior. Later, after gathering her thoughts, Dae-in went to the prison to visit her husband Junsun. Yoon Hoon, meanwhile, continued his search for the truth. The owner of a nearby mini-mart gave him an unexpected gift, a surveillance tape that the police hadn't picked up. After watching the footage, Young Hoon saw the man buy a knife and walk back to his car. That moment proved decisive. The license plate number became a new lead. After bribing a detective, he got the address of the car's owner. On the day of the appeal hearing, he went to that address. When he met a man he didn't know, Yun Hong, gripped by a thirst for justice, attacked and kidnapped him. After bringing the man to his apartment, he tied him to the bed on which his wife had once been found. The tension reached a climax when Young Hoon began asking questions, alternating with blows, trying to squeeze out the truth. The man screamed in pain, unable to give answers that would satisfy Yun Hong. However, this desperate move further confused his search for the truth, blurring the line between the pursuit of justice and personal vindictiveness. There is a knock at the apartment, and a man opens the door. Upon seeing the man on the bed, she is horrified. She recognizes the man from the CCTV footage and asks Yun Hong what he recognized. Yun Hong tried his best to squeeze the truth out of the captive, but his efforts were futile. The man remained silent, clearly hiding something that Yun Hong was so eager to hear. Soon, Dae-yeon, seeing how the situation was escalating, decided to intervene. She tried to persuade Yun Hong to let the prisoner go. Young Hoon left the room to take a smoke break. Left alone with the captive, Dae-yeon heard some unexpected words. The man claimed that the real killer was none other than Yun Hong himself. He promised to help prove Young Hoon's innocence if she untied him. These words shocked the girl, but the doubts tormenting her soul made her give in to temptation. She untied the man, hoping that his story would shed light on the truth. Suddenly, Yun Hong burst into the room and found the man free. In a fit of anger, he rushed to the door to stop them, but the captive was more nimble. He had locked himself in from the inside. Dae-hyun seized the moment and called the police. At that moment, the man finally spoke. His words sounded like a thunderclap. He confessed that he was going to kill Jun-sun that night. When Jung-hoon asked why he did it, the prisoner shifted his gaze to Dae-yeon and said that she knew the answer. Silence ensued, the tension in the air becoming unbearable. It turned out that Jun-yoon was having an affair with the man's wife. She turned out to be one of the moms at the kindergarten where Dae-yeon's daughter went. On that fateful night, the man followed Jun-yoon, suspecting that he was on his way to meet his wife. When he saw Jun-sung enter the apartment, he ran to the market in a rage, bought a knife, and rushed after him. However, upon bursting into the apartment, he discovered that Jun-sung was not there with his wife, but with the victim. Dae-yeon remained silent, immersed in her own thoughts. The police officers started knocking on the door. Dae-yeon, tense and determined, begged Jung-hoon not to open the door. After all, if the captive told the police that Jung-soon had been at the victim's house that day, nothing would save him from jail. Jung-hoon was torn by internal contradictions. He looked at the hammer he was clutching in his hand, then shifted his gaze to the door behind which the police were standing. Finally, with a sigh, Yun Hong threw the hammer on the floor and headed towards the door. But at this moment, there was an unexpected turn of events. Releasing himself, Dae-hyun grabbed the hammer and delivered a fatal blow to the captive's neck. The man fell to the floor, his screams silenced. The police officers outside the door continued to pound on the door, demanding that it be opened. The situation was becoming increasingly critical. Da-young, barely containing her emotions, suggested to Yoon-hoon to frame the dead man to save Jun-sung. However, Yoon-hoon froze in place, gripped by horror at what had happened. The police officers began to break down the door. When they broke into the apartment, in a fit of panic, she hit herself on her stomach with a hammer to frame Yoon-hoon. The police immediately detained him, leaving Dae-hyun on the spot as the victim. After his arrest, Yong-hoon was told that he was accused of killing his wife, and Dae-hyun was taken to the hospital as a witness and victim. When Young-soon was later driving to pick up his daughter, he suddenly felt a strange heaviness in the bag that Dae-yeon had left for him before leaving. Stopping the car, he opened it and found a knife drenched in blood. At that moment, fragments of memories flashed before him, and he realized, the killer had been Dae-yeon all along. Memories of that fateful night surfaced in his mind, revealing the true picture. That night, Dae-yeon had seen Jun-sung leaving the victim's apartment. Jun-sung was indeed having an affair, but not with the victim. He was there because the victim also found out about the affair and wanted to talk about it. In a fit of jealousy, she came to the victim's apartment and demanded an explanation. The victim, unaware that Dae-yeon was being aggressive, let her in. Dae-yeon directly asked her if Jun-sung was here, but the victim denied it. That denial only made her even angrier. Blazing with jealousy and rage, Dae-yeon punched the woman and then strangled her. Taking a knife, she delivered the fatal blow, then carefully wiped away the blood, covered her victim's face with a towel, and left, destroying all traces of her presence. Now he knew the truth, but that knowledge could change nothing. He was a victim of intrigue, jealousy, and false accusations. This tragedy not only ruined his life, but it forever changed the way he looked at the people he loved. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and give the channel a like. See you soon.